Hi, I'm Laura Lindsay. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Battle for the Belt. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Ann Dorrance. Dr. Dorrance spent 27 years working in the area of soybean pathology at Ohio State. So she has a lot of wisdom and experience in this area. So today we're in Northwest Ohio. And Ann, can you tell us what you found in our Battle for the Belt study?
Well, as a pathologist, I was very delighted to see you have my favorite pathogen, Phytophora Soji. This area, though, here is famous for this. We've been studying this for over 50 years here. And 50 years ago, this field would have been wiped out, right? So this is one of the achievements that the breeders and companies and pathologists have worked together, is that to develop varieties that can withstand this disease. Phytophthora is a water mold. It produces swimming spores. So when we've had the wet rains, what were 2 weeks ago, we begin to see these colonization. And this is probably one of the rare things that happen here, but the roots are rotted, and we have this chocolate brown canker that moves up the stem. The best method is just to really pay attention to your variety selection. And normally this used to be controlled by single resistance genes. So you'll see on the bags, they'll advertise RPS1A, RPS1C, and RPS1K. And the pathogens here in Ohio have adapted. We've just done a recent pathogen survey. And we really need to focus on the other type of resistance, the quantitative resistance. And that's really critical. So this plant singly didn't have what it needed, which we sometimes find, but you can see the majority here are just beautiful and healthy, and they're going to withstand the disease.
So what else? What other friends did you find in our field? I won't say our friends. I say Ann's friends. They're not necessarily my friends. They're Ann's friends.
So this is unusual because, this has been here before. I've had some plots looking at it, but frogeye leaf spot. And this is a tan, small lesion. They can get a little bit bigger. The centers can go from gray to deep tan, but the telltale sign is when you flip them over and you look at the underside of the leaf, you can see little blue-gray spores. They're about the size of a day-old whisker on the back. And interestingly, due to some work from a previous study, a student about 10 years ago, we do know that this pathogen on the leaves and on the stems will overwinter here in Ohio, even this far north. This is a new thing. We didn't think it ever would, but our winters are much milder than they were 30 years ago. So with this change, we do see this happening. So interestingly, the companies are a little bit behind on the breeding for frogeye resistance in northern varieties. So those of you that live in this region and have this in your field, variety selection is going to be really important next year. To look for those where you might have to work really closely with your seed dealer to know if the variety has got that resistance.
Frogeye is something that we've been scouting for in my program for over 10 years with various graduate students, and we've picked it up quite frequently in Clinton County, Preble County, maybe a little bit in Mercer County, but never in Northwest Ohio until last year. And so last year in Henry County, not only did we see frogeye leaf spot, but we actually sprayed foliar fungicide at R3 and we got a yield response of about 5 bushels per acre. So these are things that farmers in Northwest Ohio may not be aware of or looking for, but I think we'd encourage you to go out in your fields this time of the year even and see if you have frogeye leaf spot, so then you can prepare for next year.
And that's really critical, doing that. I always called it see how your variety performed.
Yes.
It is not just hearing the grain in the bin, as you're in the combine, as you're harvesting, but it's doing these final walkthroughs at this growth stage, because this is where you're going to see sudden death syndrome. You're going to find the pockets that are short. If there's a pocket of soybean cyst nematode, you know where to sample. You'll see Phytophora, especially after a rain. Sclerotinia pops up at this time. So all of these critical diseases that are yield robbers, you know, if you don't walk your fields, you're not going to see them.
Yeah, great advice from Ann Dorrance. And so, Ann, as you're wrapping up 27 years at Ohio State, what are your top 3 soybean disease management tips for Ohio farmers?
Well, we just touched on the one.
Scout in the fall.
Scout in the fall. The other one is really I guess maybe a way you and I do studies all the time. We know certain varieties will push the results one way or the other. And so that just comes to variety selection. Really choosing varieties that've got that resistance package for your farm are really critical. We know from time frogeye was really bad, as this is an example in the southern part of the state. And it's because they kept planting the super susceptible line. Gave us great fungicide studies, right? But really choosing that, the Phytophora, keeping track. You know, originally when I started, we were recommending single genes. You know, over time, we know due to the changes, we don't recommend that anymore. So really paying attention. Soybean cyst nematode, be aware that there's going to be some changes and recommendations coming up with that as some new resistance has been identified. So really kind of paying attention and listening to what's really pertinent for this area. So scouting resistance, I've recommended, I'm different from some of my colleagues in this part of the state, especially with the poor drainage, choosing the right seed treatment mix is really going to be critical to getting off to a top start. I don't say that in other parts of the state because they don't have the drainage issues, but drainage issues, no-till farming, all those things favor those pathogens that sit in that top profile. And so we've got tons of data that has shown that a seed treatment works. And one of the achievements of, I think, of working on this location specifically is we've helped label 4 more fungicides to help fight the battle for soybeans, right?
Fight the battle. One more question. This will be an easy one for you, Ann. Are you team corn or are you team soybean?
Team soybean.
All right, with a smile on her face, team soybean. But we thank you for everything you've done here for Extension in Ohio State, and really appreciate you coming out here to talk with us about Battle for the Belt.
Oh, thank you very much.